much, everybody, for joining our webinar this morning. My name is Henifin. I am the Fire and Climate Resilience Coordinator at Pepperwood. And today I'm going to be sharing everything you need to know about the Wildfire Fuel Mapper. Pepperwood is a biological reserve located just outside of Santa Rosa. We're at the southern end of the Mayacamas. And the preserve is really a living laboratory and a hub for educational ecology. And really, wildfire resilience is one of our key components of both our research, our curriculum at the preserve, as well as our community engagement. The Wildfire Fuel Mapper was developed really to provide landowners and land managers with both the latest science on wildfire hazard mapping, combined with resources that are needed to make that information actionable on the landscape and to reduce fuels to make communities more resilient to wildfire. If we can get to advance there. Okay. So really, today I'm going to cover this is sort of the flow of the webinar. We're going to talk about the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, why it was built and who built it, what counties are currently available in the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, as well as some of the areas we're planning to expand to. And I'm going to showcase the Napa County Wildfire Fuel Mapper to really dig into some of the details of the tool and how it could be used. And then we'll wrap up and have some time for questions at the end. We know that warming temperatures and changing weather patterns have really given rise to unprecedented conditions, extreme heat, intense storms, drought, and wildfire. And the Bay Area has really experienced devastating wildfires over the last decade that has dramatically changed the landscape and the communities that are living here. At Pepperwood, we're finding innovative ways to build resilience in the landscape as well as in our communities by promoting landscape habitability and resiliency in the region and beyond. So after the fires in 2017 and 2019 in Sonoma County, Pepperwood partnered with Tuckman Geospatial, the University of California Agricultural and Natural Resources, as well as the cooperative extension offices to develop the Wildfire Fuel Mapper with support from PG&E, CAL FIRE, and the Thornton Family Foundation. The Wildfire Fuel Mapper is an online tool that gives landowners and land managers access to fine-scale maps to understand the vegetation types and the need for fuel treatments on their properties, along with data in a library of resources around specialists, funding, education materials, and support generally for fuels reduction to slow the spread of wildfire. Our Wildfire Fuel Mapper team has been actively working with counties throughout the Bay Area to understand the unique needs of each jurisdiction, while also maintaining a consistent set of data across the platform. We've successfully launched the tool in 4 counties and are actively working on other counties, trying to obtain the necessary data that's needed to advance the Wildfire Fuel Mapper into additional geographies. Since the launch of the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, we have provided over 1,000 custom maps for parcels across the counties we serve, down to parcels as small as 1 to 3 acres. Our custom reports are available for all counties at the parcel level. There's 3 counties where reports at the watershed level are available, and 1 county where reports are available at the Fire Safe Council level. We're committed to providing the best possible data for landowners and land managers to take action on their property, to reduce fuels, and to mitigate the threat of large-scale wildfires. The Wildfire Fuel Mapper homepage can be found at www.wildfirefuelmapper.org. We're on the homepage here of the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, and you can see the geographies or the counties that we're working in: Sonoma County, Napa, Contra Costa, and Alameda. We're working with additional counties in the North and South Bay as data and funding become available. Dramatic changes due to wildfire and other climate-related impacts have dramatically altered the vegetation in some North Bay counties, in particular Lake County. And we're working to to further our data, but using new LiDAR that's been flown this past fall, that we've been actively looking for opportunities to use that data to produce the fine scale vegetation layer that's needed to then produce the wildfire hazard data layers that we put into the fuel mapper. As I mentioned, each county has a page that is customized to fit the unique needs and goals of the county's fuel management vision, while also maintaining a set of standardized data across the fuel mapper. Here are the 4 counties where the fuel mapper has been customized and launched. The first county that we launched was in Sonoma. We were able to produce parcel reports, canned parcel reports for parcels greater than 3 acres. We also summarized the data by watershed and the suite of maps that's included in the Sonoma tool are the fine scale vegetation, the fuels data, including ladder fuels, flame length, as well as vegetation height. It also includes a fuel model that really combines vegetation with forest structure and topography to give a rating of flammability for that particular vegetation type. We expanded in Napa and launched the tool in June 2023. In Napa, the parcels are available if they're greater than 1 acre. So we were able to reduce the acreage size. We also introduced the concept of defensible space, or the summary reports on defensible space, which was really a customization that we made in Napa, and now we're going to be implementing throughout the Wildfire Fuel Mapper because we think it's so successful. Also in Napa, they have a very active Fire Safe Council community, so you can get the reports by Fire Safe Council. And then the suite of maps in the Napa tool is sort of an abbreviated or short report, we're calling it, which has 4 primary data layers or maps that you can visualize. And I'll talk a little bit more about that short report when we get to that showcase. In February 2024, we were able to expand to Contra Costa and Alameda counties. These counties share a lot of resources, so oftentimes we talk about them together, but they each have their own landing page. We were able to go down to 3 acres or greater for the parcel maps. There's a lot more population in these counties and density, so we started at 3 acres. They have watershed reports, and then their suite of data set is the fine scale vegetation layer, the fuels, the ladder fuels, and the flame length layer, as well as they did some additional work with the fuel model and incorporating that into a hazard layer, which really takes into account flame length, ignition locations based on transmission lines, how difficult it is to suppress fire, and also bringing in wildfire weather, or the fire weather. And so there's a layer that's called the wildfire hazard that is available for Contra Costa and Alameda. There's also a layer that incorporates summaries around the number of structures that would be endangered and is incorporated into that hazard, is how many the structure density. As you can see, these counties are all a little bit different from each other, but they all are really based on the same fundamental fine scale vegetation data and fuels layers. Now I'm going to navigate. This is the home page for Napa County. So all of the landing pages for the counties look and navigate in the same way. And so this is a good example to start with. So they all look very similar to this. The navigation along the top, you're able to change the county. If you navigate deeper into the tool, you can always come back to this home page. There is an about, where you can learn more about this particular county and their approach to the Wildfire Fuel Mapper. There's the custom maps that will link you right to the interactive web application that will allow you to start to build your custom map. And then resources and data will take you to a library of information that can tell you more about the data that was used. There's a collection of resources that highlight specialists in the area for fuel management, as well as funding opportunities and other information about fuels management, and then a frequently asked question page. Then there in the middle, there's always a video. This one is actually Eric Hernandez from the Napa Fire Marshal's office talking about the importance of fuel management in Napa County. The Napa County Fire Marshal has been very involved with developing the Napa Wildfire Fuel Mapper, which has been great. You can even access the tool via their website. They're actively using the tool to help homeowners interested in identifying fuels on their property through the Defensible Space program. Then underneath the video here, there's a link. There's a button here that'll link you to their Defensible Space page to learn more about Defensible Space. In the middle is getting your custom maps. So that again will take you to the custom maps page. And then all the way to the right is a link to the Napa County wildfire plan. And so each of these will look a little different by county, but more or less that's the same organization that you'll see. So in Napa County, there was really this primary focus on defensible space. Defensible space is created when the vegetation within 100 feet of the structure is properly managed to reduce wildfire risk and facilitate firefighting. In Napa County, the supervisors established the requirements related to defensible space in their Ordinance 1467 to encourage landowners to reduce fuels that threaten lives and property. Within the 100-foot defensible space, there's these 3 zones that we talk about, which is the intermediate zone closest within 5 feet to the structure, the intermediate zone that is 30 feet out from the structure, and then 100 feet out from the structure. In the report on the Napa Wildfire Fuel Mapper, those have been collapsed into one single buffer around the property or the structure. So really the size, the type, amount, and the arrangement of vegetation within this zone matters. We know that spacing of large trees 100 feet apart within that 100-foot buffer area around the structure can reduce the risk of the wildfire moving easily from one tree to another and to the structure. Once a landowner or manager has the custom report from the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, you can connect with experts who will help plan and implement fuels treatments and be able to give additional information about managing within each of these zones. In Napa, there are 3 types of summary reports. I'll talk about 2 of them here and then talk about the third one after I talk about these. The parcels greater than 1 acre, and then of course the fire safe councils within Napa. There are 31 fire safe councils in Napa actively engaging with the community. The fire safe councils are boundaries that are created roughly with this idea of a neighborhood. Obviously, some of these are much smaller than others, but the idea of these designs are general neighborhoods. And so folks working together and identifying within this neighborhood community. I'm going to talk about first the parcel reports. So what you're looking at right now is the first page of the parcel report. It was custom designed, like I said, in Napa County, and really has become kind of our standard for other counties going forward because we liked how it was organized. So in the upper right-hand corner, you can see some details about the parcel related to the APN or the address, the total acres, and then the number of structures. So There's some basic information. This is also a searchable function that I'll mention in the last way you can get a report. On the left-hand side, you can see that there's the parcel boundary as well in yellow, as well as the 100-foot buffer around the structures that are, in this case, adjacent to this parcel. So on the right-hand side, there's some details about defensible space and what the landowner or the homeowner's responsibilities are around defensible space around the structure. And I'm going to note here, the reason why I picked this particular parcel is to demonstrate that category 2 is dealing with structures that are adjacent to your parcel. The structures that are adjacent to the parcel have a 100-foot buffer, that red line, or that red buffer. If that red buffer ends up on this landowner's property, that becomes this landowner's responsibility. So there's that note to make, and there's some description here about that specific category in the ordinance. There's information about the different categories in the acres. So there's 8 acres of defensible space on this particular parcel due to the adjacent structures to the parcel. And then down here on the bottom is a summary of vegetation categories by height based on the 2018 LIDAR that gives some description and summary at a percentage as well as acreage of how many trees, shrubs, and grass are on the property. This is a zoomed in version so you can see a little bit better. So anything over 15 feet is considered a tree. And then there's some recommendations about what would be the appropriate arrangement and spacing of vegetation with for trees in that 100-foot buffer. The shrubs are 1 to 15 feet. You can see the description there about how to deal with shrubs, and then of course grass, which is anything under a foot. So this really gives a homeowner or a landowner or a land manager a better idea about the scale of their fuels treatment that is going to be required within that defensible space. So if you just have a lot of grass, that might be an easier lift of keeping that mowed, versus if you have a lot of trees, you're really going to have to work with a specialist or an arborist and discuss how to meet these criteria for the ordinance for your trees. In Napa County, there are 3 additional maps that are available. The 2021 imagery up in the upper left-hand corner with place names to really orient the landowner to the property and just give more of a sense of your property's proximity to others, as well as streams and water bodies. This is included to flag landowners that there's water on their property. If waterways are present, there's requirements around mitigation that's needed during field treatments that may be done on the property. The last map is the flame length map that is available for Napa. This is really a modeled output that's predicting the flame length based on the vegetation characteristics, topography, and then essentially the worst case scenario of low humidity conditions and red flag warning wind day. So the red and orange areas indicate where flame length are predicted to be greater than 11 feet, which is very difficult for firefighters to control. These are areas that can highlight like a priority area for a landowner to consider for treatment. So for this parcel, there's some red outside of that defensible space zone. That still should be considered as a priority area for fuels treatment, depending on the goals of the treatment plan from the landowner. So moving into the Fire Safe Council reports, again, there are 31 Fire Safe Councils in Napa. They're organized roughly around the neighborhood concept, and they can vary in size. And landowners that are within a certified fire safe council boundary where work is being done can qualify for discounts from some insurance companies. So that's a benefit. Neighbors who seek fuels treatment, if they're going out to talk with a contractor, oftentimes there's a minimum requirement, either cost or acreage, that's needed for that contractor to do the work. And if a neighborhood comes together and has a larger project, there's potential that the contractor will take on the project. So that could be another benefit. Today, I'm going to highlight the Silverado Fire Safe Council, which is that small dot there in Napa County on the map. They are a small FSC. They only have 720 acres within their boundary, but they have 762 structures. So I'll show you, and that the parcel I showed you earlier is within this FSC. So here's the boundary for the Fire Safe Council, the Silverado Fire Safe Council, with the defensible space around all 762 structures, as well as the defensible space around the structures outside of the FSC. So this is the same layout. This report has the same layout as the parcel reports. The right-hand side is modified to address defensible space for the Fire Safe Council as a whole. So there's some details there. The percent and acreage that you saw before in that table related to vegetation categories of trees, shrubs, and grass is available here as well. The idea being that the Fire Safe Council will be using this report to begin preliminary discussions with specialists that would help advance fuel treatment projects. So having these numbers is very helpful to begin that conversation. The Fire Safe Councils have some of the same maps as the parcels. Here's that imagery from 2021. This is the flame length that we saw before. Here you can clearly see that there's some difficult flame lengths just to the east of this FSC, this Fire Safe Council, leading directly into this densely populated area that's just east, on the east side of the FSC. So it kind of gives a lot of context about the potential for wildfire to move into this community. There are some additional data sets that are included in the Fire Safe report, Council report. This looks at the number of times these locations have burned in the recent past. So we can tell something about the frequency of these locations having fires. Also, if we understand how long ago there was a fire, we can understand something about the characteristics and the structure of the vegetation regrowth. So there's kind of a time lag between when LIDAR is flown and then we were able to get an actual vegetation layer from that LIDAR. So there's about a 2-year lag. So oftentimes what you're seeing in the LIDAR may have changed because vegetation obviously is going to be altered in the preceding years. Another layer that's available is the ladder fuels. So these are the fuels that are 1 to 4 meters above the ground. These can be really challenging during a wildfire in that they can take a ground fire and it can crawl up through the ladder fuels into the crown of the forest and be able to spread embers a lot more efficiently. So ladder fuels are a really important point to think about in removing and creating a space where there isn't fuels for the fire to climb up. This is the fine scale vegetation map for Napa County. This FSC is mostly valley oak, but you can kind of see some of the other vegetation types within the Fire Safe Council boundary, as well as on the outskirts of the boundary. And really, the fine scale vegetation layer is what drives all of the fuel layers, the ladder fuels, the flame length, and then ultimately that can be put into that fuels model, and then the fire hazard layer as well. So this is the sort of important piece that we need for counties maybe that have dramatically altered or very old LiDAR. We need to kind of get that LiDAR up to date so that we have the best vegetation layer available. So our team is really seeking to build resiliency at all levels, whether it's an individual landowner doing work on their property and trying to protect their structures or their homes, as well as their neighbors, or neighborhoods getting together to work together collaboratively to maximize their resources and make an impact as a group. Every bit counts towards this healthy, more resilient landscape and communities that is our ultimate goal. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about an advancement that we've made, and this is the third way that you can get a report. We have received a lot of feedback about the desire for folks to be able to select multiple parcels that maybe aren't within an organized FSC or within a watershed, but maybe are at the project level. And so we now have this ability to select multiple parcels and get reports. So you can either put in the APN or the address or click directly onto the map and select the parcels of interest. And then you'll get a report that looks something like this. I just selected some parcels just outside of that Silverado FSC just to highlight what you can capture with this multi-parcel. So if there's a project that's either small, that crosses multiple parcels, or maybe is across a larger landscape, you can use the multi-parcel functionality to select the parcels you're interested in. I just want to note that the results or the layers that you're going to get, you can select which layers you would like to have in your report, but it will be limited to what reports are available for your county. And then it'll be emailed to you. And so that's another thing to note, is that that will come directly to your email. So no matter what your report, the report that you're using, the fuels management project that you're kind of trying to advance, we have this set of resources intended to make any of those reports actionable. So you can find out from this resource page a little bit more about the data, so you can see how the data was processed, or where it came from, or what it was, the year the LiDAR was flown, so you can know how the dates work as far as how much time has passed since that layer was produced. A list of specialists and experts that can point you to, that are going to help you with moving your fuels management project forward with some expertise. The funding opportunities are listed here as well for the county, as well as some of the statewide resources, as well as there is some information to learn more about fuels management in general. So the specialist list here, we have these categories. Not every category for every county is filled in. It just depends on what services are available by county. So in Napa, for example, if you're looking for an arborist, it'll take you to a page that you can search for a local arborist. If you want to learn more about defensible space and want to better understand what defensible space looks like on your property, you can contact Napa Firewise, and they have a program where you can have someone come out and kind of take a look. We know that funding can often be a big barrier to fuels management projects, and so here's a list of funding opportunities. It goes beyond this, of course, that looks at either free seasonal services like chipping programs. It can also highlight areas where there's cost sharing programs, and we try to keep this list up to date. For example, Napa Firewise has a defensible space cost sharing program. There's also statewide or regional grant programs through CAL FIRE and AIMS. So really, this is a way to kind of make a lot of these projects possible for the broader community. So fuels management can look very different depending on where you are. It could look like irrigated defensible space. It could look like pile burning or even vegetation removal and chipping along roadways. All of it has an impact towards a healthy ecosystem and forest systems that provide a way to slow wildfire progression and allow the firefighters time to respond. We live in a fire-dependent Mediterranean ecosystem, and our team is looking to find innovative ways to find nature-based solutions to mitigate the threat of large-scale wildfire while also reducing the risk of to life and property in our communities. So this is just a diagram kind of stepping through what planning a vegetation management project looks like. You really want to set your goals or what you want to do. The Wildfire Fuel Mapper really comes in at step 2, where you're gathering information. So you're getting the report from the fuel mapper. You're kind of getting more information. Making the plan is sort of where you're transitioning with your experts or your specialists to kind of really dig into the details of what might be possible. And then, of course, executing or completing those projects, and then maintaining that in a sustainable way. So the idea is the Wildfire Fuel Mapper is kind of helping kind of get you through those first couple steps and move towards actionable projects. So I hope that if you are a property owner or landowner here today and you happen to have the Wildfire Fuel Mapper in your county, that you'll go ahead and check out your property or your neighborhood. In areas where we're looking to expand our efforts that include Lake and Mendocino County, we're working to progress the most recent LiDAR flights into that fine scale vegetation layer and hopefully expand the tool into those counties. If you're someone who's already looking to reduce fuels on your property, and maybe you're outside these counties or inside these counties, you can always use those resource pages to learn more about specialists and funding that could really help move your project forward. Even if it's not available in your county, those resources are available often across regions or geographies. So I really appreciate your interest today in our webinar, and I'll go ahead and open it up to questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kai. What an amazing presentation. This was super informational. I've got a few in the chat. Folks, feel free to raise your hand too, and we will answer questions in the order in which they are received. At first, I have Barry. He's wondering if we can go back to some of the first slides you had. I think it's like 2 or 3. And you displayed the Wildfire Fuel Mapper hazard map, and the geographic area was enclosed by a purple border. Wondering what that purple border is representing.
Oh, sorry. I know what you're talking about. Okay. The purple border in this case, actually, it's a parcel. So that purple outline is just the parcel. This is a screenshot, I believe, of a map from Sonoma County where the hazard layer is available.
And Lynn is wondering if there's anything we can do to add the Fire Safe Council reports to Sonoma County's Wildfire Fuel Mapper, or if that's already in effect.
It is possible. My understanding that Sonoma County doesn't have exactly the same delineations, I think, or boundaries like Napa does. I think that's where there's maybe some clarification that we need to make. So if you know of boundaries for Sonoma County, it's certainly something we can pursue. But my understanding is it's not as explicitly delineated in Sonoma County the way it is in Napa. They're a little bit different.
So Barry lives on a 9-acre parcel just north of Petaluma. Does the fuel mapper cover this area?
Yeah, it covers all of Sonoma County.
Excellent. Oh, and there's a great note here from Karen. So we may already have this plan, she says, but it occurs to me that it would be powerful to offer landowners an opportunity to buy fence hung signs to the effect of, quote, fire safe wildfire partner, or large standalone wayside signs that might add fire safe wildfire partner, landowner uses fuel management practices to maintain defensible space, that sort of thing, to sort of alert the public. Is that something that we've considered or that we already do?
We are not currently doing it. It's a really great idea. I think
Great.
it's something I will definitely start to like explore, and I would love to hear more about your ideas for sure, because that sounds like a great way to let the community know, that landowners are really committed to making their community more resilient in this way, and also get others kind of knowing about it.
And Ted is wondering, does the tool refer to defensible space areas by category? Oh, why does it refer to defensible space areas by category instead of the more familiar zones?
That is specific to the ordinance written in Napa County, is my understanding. So Napa County has a very explicit way that they describe defensible space in that ordinance. Other counties in Contra Costa, I think, and Alameda follow the categories or the zones that I guess I would say zones that are more familiar.
Karen also had a note just to clarify LiDAR. So she says LiDAR, or light detection and ranging, is a remote sensing method that uses a laser to measure the distance to a target and create a 3D map of the surrounding environment. Do you have anything else that you want to add to that definition?
Perfect. I think that's very helpful. Folks maybe don't necessarily know what LiDAR is. So that's helpful just to clarify that it is, a resource that essentially uses that technology to sense what's on the ground from aerial flights. And that did take place in Mendocino, Lake, Sonoma, and Napa County this last fall. So there's going to be some updates to likely other counties' vegetation layers.
Nice. Okay. So a couple more from Barry. When you say required, referring to Napa County, required by whom? And what will this requiring body do to support the individual parcel owner's efforts to comply?
So Napa County wants to really view their defensible space as their ordinance as an encouragement or this is what you can do. So Napa Firewise is very involved in helping landowners either through cost share or through their defensible space programs, where you can get some support to move through a fuels project. I don't believe there's any penalties per se or any way to penalize a landowner, but the idea is to encourage landowners to clear defensible space in a way that isn't cutting everything down to the ground, because that was also happening apparently as a concern, that helping landowners understand that you still want vegetation there. It's just about how it's arranged and how you do the spacing. So it's really meant to be a carrot primarily, or just a clarifying tool to help people comply.
And Barry's also both very impressed by the establishment of the number of times burned map, and also another question: when viewing the vegetation maps, are differences considered between deciduous and evergreen trees and bushes, or is there a difference for the purpose of considering fire resilience?
In the fine scale vegetation layer, it's going to give you a lot more detail of the vegetation types on that front first page of the report. It's kind of lumping into categories based on just height. So a way to kind of capture just very roughly, things that are over 15 feet as trees, anything kind of between 1 and 15 being shrubs. And so I think there's two different things there. There's the really high level categories on that front page related to height. And then there's a layer that you can dig into more that looks at actual vegetation types that you would get into deciduous, conifer, and things like that.
So Lainey has had her hand up for a long time. Lainey, I'm actually just going to allow you to ask your question as you are up next. So I'm just going to allow you to talk now. You are now, should be able to unmute at this stage, Lainey.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you.
Well, this is pretty impressive. I've got two questions. One, how is this site maintained? How much does it cost? How many people are involved in it? What's the level of support to be able to maintain this?
It's a great question. So this started originally with funding, like I said, from PG&E, CAL FIRE, and the Family Foundation, the Thornton Family Foundation. And
that was our foundation.
Yeah. What's that?
That's our foundation.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So Tuckman Geospatial and University of California Natural Resources and Pepperwood are sort of the core team. So there's actually a handful of us. There's 3 or 4 of us that are working on this. We received funding to expand this to Napa County through the Napa Firewise Foundation. And then Contra Costa and Alameda was additional funding. I'm not exactly sure the source of that one. So when funding comes up, we expand into those counties. We are continually seeking funding to maintain the website. Any advancements or updates in the vegetation layer would have to come with additional funding that we seek. So we're constantly sort of in the cycle of seeking funding and opportunities to advance things. For instance, Lake County, we were able to fund the LIDAR or support that process. We didn't support it, but we were able to secure that funding for that to happen. And then now we're looking to use the data that's from that flight to create the derivatives, which is a piece that then becomes the fine scale vegetation. So yeah, we can certainly have a conversation about the numbers around each of those steps and what that takes.
What about the step of inputting new data? I mean, what is this data from? What year is this data from?
Depends on the county. So Sonoma County, I think, has older data. I think it's 2016 to 2018 LIDAR. Napa's 2018. I think Contra Costa and Alameda are more recent, 2020. Lake County and Napa County, or Lake County and Mendocino County, would have just been flown this past year. It does take about 2 years to get almost to the fine scale vegetation from those flights.
Well, you got to come up with a figure for just maintaining. I think it's great you're moving into other counties, but you've got to come up with a figure for what it's going to cost to keep this data active, because Sonoma County is already well, what is it? Is it 10 years old now?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the vegetation changes every year, so
yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing you should really come up with.
We do have those numbers, but again, it's very specific to the circumstance. So Sonoma County also was part of that LiDAR flight. And the update might just require certain areas where there's been disturbance in the last 10 years, which obviously is a fair amount of the county. So just, it's very dependent on each of the counties, what their circumstances are.
Okay, and then, so the little red circle, you identify where the defensible space should be, but you can't assess from the data if they're doing a good job with their defensible space or not.
Yeah, so we don't actually have a tracking tool as of yet that looks at if the project has been completed. I just saw that Napa County has been developing a tool or a platform that is tracking the work that's being done at the county level. I don't know that they're doing individual parcel levels at this point. Eventually, that was the idea, that we would be able to say something about how effective the projects, the fuel reduction projects, have been in reducing the fuels. And that's sort of a goal of ours to get there.
So right now, in terms of the use of this, it seems to me that it's got two uses. One is, that I can think of, one is the parcel owner can go and see what kind of risk that his parcel is in and what his neighbors are in, and kind of assess for himself his danger level. And two, that county planners who want to establish buffer zones have something to work with to establish buffer zones and the like. And maybe you have other people that you think maybe CAL FIRE would use it, or some other people would use it too. So that's one question: who are the users of this? And when it comes to a per parcel user, it seems to me that you're asking the parcel owner to dig in and do a lot of stuff. It'd be great if he could identify his parcel and say, tell me everything you know about it, and have some artificial intelligence give a little dialogue about his property and what the risk is and some things. So you're not relying on a parcel owner to wade through all these different layers and come up with an analysis. That seems like possibly a stretch. Could you address who the end users are and what you're finding in terms of the actual usability of this?
Yeah, so you're correct in that there's sort of those two users, really. The individual landowner who would look at their parcel and be able to have, a report to take what our intention and why we have the resource pages, that they could take that report to an expert or a specialist, and it gives them some starting point. So if they know they have a lot of trees, they'd need to go to an arborist to kind of have a conversation about that. So there's what the individual landowner would do, and that's sort of our anticipation, that they would go through that process and hopefully dig through those resources to be able to find the folks who can give them that level of expertise that they would need, as well as funding if they needed that support. And then sort of go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kai, finish up.
And then the county level, certainly they're using it in this way to be able to capture some of the projects that are like happening right now, and sort of what they need to kind of be considering for fuels reduction. In Napa County, because they have these fire safe councils, I believe they're also using these reports to kind of talk with their neighbors and have conversations about what's possible at that level. So the end user kind of can vary within a county. For Lake County, there might even be folks, so a lot of tribes are doing a lot of fuels management, and they might be pulling reports as well to sort of figure out projects, which the multi-parcel function will likely be used there in sort of just drawing an area of interest and capturing those parcels they'll be impacting with some of their treatments that are happening. So there's kind of a range of users. But those are the ones that I'm aware of. Hopefully I answered all the questions.
I think that was great. I do want to move back into the chat. We have 7 minutes left, so I just want to make sure we get to everybody's questions here. So a comment from Lynn, who loves the multi-parcel report feature, which has been a great addition to the original tool, and it's been very useful to her. And then another question, are the LiDAR surveys a state-funded and administered program?
The LiDAR that was flown in the fall is a USGS flight. So it was flown by USGS with a lot of support from the counties. Lake County was, and Supervisor Pyska was a real champion of getting that pushed through. So there is a lot of support at the county level, but it was flown by USGS.
And so one participant was looking at their report and it only shows 2013 LiDAR. Given the 2017 Tubbs fire, things have changed quite a bit, so the report doesn't seem of much use for me. Will there be an update, is the question.
Yes, so that LiDAR that was just flown, that's the idea, is that we will be able to update the counties that have older LiDAR. This is kind of the challenge with any kind of spatial layer is data collection to actual product can take some time just because of the processing time and kind of validation process. So Sonoma County definitely needs to be updated, and that's on our radar. There should be 2 maps with imagery that could kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot. I think it's 2018 and 2020 for Sonoma, to see how the vegetation has changed just from an imagery perspective, if that kind of gives a little context. But it is one of the challenges.
And does the site have any information on the criteria used to determine things like hazard class and others? Another question.
Yeah, so if you go to the data page, there is details on each of the layers and descriptions about how the data was processed to get to hazard category. If hazard is one of the layers available, I think Contra Costa and Alameda have the hazard layer.
So one of your answers, it suggests that Pepperwood is maintaining the program. Do you have the capacity to continue growing, or does Pepperwood have the capacity to continue growing and adding to the project? And are there other CAL FIRE, et cetera, staff involved?
It's a partnership between Pepperwood, Tuckman Geospatial, and UCNR. So that's really the team that is trying to progress with the fuel mapper. We are happy to have other folks join and help support that process. But that's been the team to this point.
And how are you reaching out to some of the larger parcel owners who do not manage their overgrown fuels adjacent to public and private roads, which threaten emergency vehicle access, egress, and residential evacuation?
So we don't necessarily reach out specifically to any individual parcel owner. I think in Napa, there has been some outreach in other counties. So we are sort of just providing the data. We haven't been doing any specific outreach to any specific parcel owners related to their fuels.
This participant also mentioned that their local fire safe council recently implemented a roadside vegetation management grant in the Hollydale Canyon Terrace neighborhoods. Do you coordinate with Sonoma County Roads, Permit Sonoma, CAL FIRE, Fire Safe Sonoma?
Yes. Yeah, we've been involved with a number of those organizations and trying to support efforts to do some of those roadside fuels management projects.
Nice. Okay, that is all the questions that I have in the chat right now. So if anyone has any further questions, we have about a minute or so left.
Also, I will leave my email up here if I can get to the last slide. If you have any questions, I'm happy to follow up. Ideas that you have, or interests that you might want to know more, how we might be moving forward with the tool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kai, for this excellent presentation. And thank you everyone for joining for this presentation. This webinar again was recorded, and the recording will be available as a link in next week's e-news that is coming